I raised my daughter with every ounce of love I had left after losing her mother. Paid bills on time, worked overtime shifts, missed meals just to keep her world from falling apart. And after all that, you know what she served me when I showed up to her house for Christmas dinner? Pork and fries. After everything, she couldn't even pretend to care about what I ate. But it wasn't the pork that broke me. It was what she did next. When her husband asked her to bring me the leftover chicken in the fridge, she threw it right in my face. And in that moment, surrounded by stunned guests and shattered pride, I realized just how far gone we were. What I did next shocked everyone, including me. I will tell you everything. First, let me thank you for your continuous support. If you love stories like this one, support us by subscribing to this channel and comment where you are watching us from. It will be great to hear from you. Now let's jump into the details of what happened. They say when your children grow up, they don't stop needing you. They just stop admitting it. I used to believe that. I really did. But nothing had tested that belief more than the last 6 years of watching my daughter Denise drift into someone I barely recognized. Once upon a time, she couldn't go to sleep without hugging my arm. Now, I was lucky to get a dry happy birthday text 2 days late. Still, I never stopped hoping. Not even after all the birthdays missed, the Father's Days ignored, the unexplained silences that stretched for weeks, sometimes months. So when she called me on December 20th and asked if I'd come to her house for Thanksgiving dinner, on Christmas Day, no less, I genuinely had to check the name twice on my phone. Denise. My Denise. The voice on the line was clipped, rehearsed, like she was reading a script someone told her to memorize. But it was her. Thought you might want to eat with some family this year, she said. It wasn't exactly warm, but it was something. I said yes before my pride could come up with a reason not to. The truth was, holidays had become quiet torture for me. My wife, Lorna, passed away 5 years ago in early December, 3 days after our anniversary. We used to host the most beautiful holiday dinners. She made everything from scratch, even the cranberry sauce. She'd hum old gospel songs in the kitchen, her apron always a little crooked, and her lipstick smudged from sneaking tastes off the spoon. The house smelled like cloves and sweet potato pie for days. After she died, the holidays felt hollow. My sons lived out of state, busy with their own families. Denise was the only one nearby, but she never extended an invite. Not once. Until now. So I told myself, maybe this was her olive branch. Maybe, after everything, she was ready to meet me halfway. I decided I'd bring a bottle of the dessert wine Lorna used to love and a hand-carved serving spoon I bought from a vendor at the church market. Something symbolic. Something that said, I'm still trying. Christmas morning came fast. I got up early, even though I didn't have to. Put on one of my better button-downs, ironed my slacks. Shined my shoes for no reason other than old habit. I even trimmed my beard a little, just in case there were photos. I wanted to look like a man worth sitting next to. A man who still had some pride left. The sky was overcast when I arrived at Denise's house, but her block looked cheerful enough. Wreaths on the neighbors' doors, plastic reindeer on front lawns. Her place had a single string of lights framing the windows, blinking slow and tired like they were as unenthusiastic about the holiday as she sounded on the phone. I knocked twice, then stepped back and waited. She opened the door with her usual tight-lipped expression, not quite a smile, not quite a frown. Just neutral. She had her hair pulled back into a bun and wore a red sweater that looked new. Behind her, the faint smell of fried food wafted through the house. Not turkey, not ham, just oil, heavy and plain. You made it, she said, stepping aside. I said I would. I replied gently, handing her the gift bag. Merry Christmas. She took it without looking inside. You can put your coat over there. Everyone's in the dining room. Everyone. I wasn't sure who that meant yet. I'd met her husband Jamal a few times. He was polite, if distant. I didn't know many of his family, and Denise had long since stopped bringing friends around me. I followed her down the hallway into the dining area. The room was warm but dim. No music playing. No candles lit. The table was set for 8, though only 6 seats were filled. Jamal, his sister, and her husband, 2 unfamiliar cousins of his, and Denise. Not a single decoration in sight. No centerpiece. No tablecloth. Just paper napkins and mismatched plates. "Merry Christmas, Mr. Miller," Jamal said, standing to shake my hand. His grip was firm, his smile genuine enough to pass. "Glad you could make it. Thank you for having me," I said, taking the empty seat beside him. Denise sat at the head of the table, folding her napkin with mechanical precision. "We already said grace," she announced. "So go ahead and dig in." Plates were passed in silence. The food came out in batches. First, a tray of fries. Yes, fries. Then a platter of pan-fried pork chops. Someone passed around store-bought rolls, still cold in the middle. There was a bowl of under-seasoned green beans that tasted like they came out of a can. I looked down at my plate and paused. Denise knew I didn't eat pork. She had known since she was 8 years old, when I'd first stopped eating it for health and spiritual reasons. I'd explained it to her over and over through the years. Even when she rebelled as a teenager and brought bacon into the house just to test me, I didn't budge. This wasn't new. I leaned slightly toward her. "Do you have any chicken? Or maybe fish?" Denise didn't look up. "Nope." That's when Jamal glanced over. "Actually," he said, rubbing the back of his neck, "I think there's some baked chicken in the fridge. From yesterday." Denise's face didn't move for a beat. Then she exhaled slowly, pushed her chair back, and stood. "Fine," she muttered, disappearing into the kitchen. The table was quiet. Too quiet. I could feel eyes bouncing between me and the kitchen doorway. Jamal tried to fill the silence by asking his cousin about a football game, but no one really responded. I folded my hands in my lap, trying to keep my posture relaxed. A minute passed. Then two. Denise returned, holding a Tupperware container. She opened it, pulled out a cold chicken thigh with her bare hand, and flung it across the table. It hit me square in the chest before falling into my lap. "There," she said. "You happy now?" The room froze. Forks hovered midair. Someone gasped. Jamal's sister whispered, "What the hell?" under her breath. I didn't move. Not right away. The chicken left a wet, greasy smear on my shirt. I looked down at it, then up at her, and something inside me cracked. I sat there, the cold chicken in my lap, like some cruel metaphor. My hands hadn't moved. My mouth couldn't form words. All I could hear was the echo of Denise's voice, sharp, dismissive, cruel. "You happy now?" No one said a word. The dining room, which moments ago had hummed with awkward small talk and clinking utensils, now sat in total, electric silence. I could feel eyes on me, some sympathetic, some too stunned to register anything. I didn't look around. I kept my eyes on my daughter, who was standing with her arms crossed, one hip jutted like she was proud of herself. And in that moment, a part of me, I don't know what part, just left the room. Like my soul stepped outside my own body to escape the sting of what had just happened. I wasn't humiliated. No, humiliation is when something embarrassing happens by accident. This was something else. This was deliberate, calculated, cruel. I took a deep breath, reached for a paper napkin, wiped the grease off my shirt slowly, carefully. The movement felt mechanical, like I'd rehearsed it 1,000 times in my head, even though I never could have imagined it. Then I stood. I pushed my chair back, so gently it didn't even scrape the floor. Everyone's eyes followed me, but no one said a word, not even Jamal. Denise still stood across the table, unmoving. Her face blank, but her eyes flickering with something I couldn't quite name. I looked down at my plate. The pork chops I never asked for, the soggy fries I didn't want, and that poor chicken thigh now lying on the floor next to my feet. I reached down, picked it up, and placed it neatly back in the Tupperware. Then I did something I hadn't done in over 20 years. I picked up the edge of the tablecloth and yanked it forward. The pork platter slid and hit the floor with a loud crash. The fries followed, scattering like spilled poker chips. Someone screamed. Glass cracked. A plate shattered. And still, I didn't raise my voice. "I raised you better than this," I said, not to her, but to the room, to the walls, to the ghosts of my past self. Denise's mouth dropped open. "You think this is about food?" I continued, my voice low and steady. "You think this is about pork? This is about respect. Something you've forgotten how to show." Jamal finally stood up, holding out his hands. "Mr. Miller." Hey, come on. Let's just all calm down." "I am calm," I said, meeting his eyes. "I'm the calmest I've been in years. And you should have stopped her before it came to this." "I didn't know he started, but Denise cut him off. "Oh, please," she snapped. "You always act like he's some saint. He wasn't around half the time I needed him growing up, and now he wants to come in here acting like I owe him a five-star meal." My jaw tightened. "You want to talk about the past? Fine. Let's talk about it." She rolled her eyes, but I wasn't finished. "Your mother died, and I held our whole world together with duct tape and prayer. You think I wasn't there? I was working 2 jobs, Denise. So you and your brothers could stay in school. So you could have clean clothes and enough food and shoes that fit. You think I wanted to miss your dance recitals or your senior trip? I couldn't be there because I was too busy keeping the lights on. I didn't ask for any of that," she snapped. "No," I said softly. "You didn't, and I never held it against you. But what you don't get to do is rewrite the story like I abandoned you. I buried the love of my life, and I still showed up the best way I knew how." She blinked, and for a second, I swear, I saw her younger self in her face. The 8-year-old girl who used to beg me to braid her hair like her mother did. The teenager who once crawled into bed with me after her first breakup, crying like her world had ended. But then it was gone. Just like that. "You should leave," she said coldly. "I'm already gone," I replied, and turned toward the door. Behind me, voices erupted. Jamal telling her she went too far, one of his cousins whispering something like, "Damn, that was his dad?" But I didn't turn back. I walked down the hallway, past the barren living room, past the unopened gift I'd left by the coat rack. I thought about grabbing it, but no. Let it sit there. Let it be a reminder. When I stepped outside, the cold air hit me like a slap. I welcomed it. It was honest. Pure. The opposite of what I'd just left behind. I sat in my car for 10 minutes before driving off. Just sat there. No radio. No heat. Just me and the silence. And for the first time in years, I let the tears come. Not heavy sobs, just a steady stream of grief, disappointment, and the cold realization that maybe some rifts never heal. Some bridges don't burn. They get torn down plank by plank, until both sides pretend they were never connected at all. I didn't drive home right away. I sat in that car until my fingers started to stiffen from the cold. The silence wasn't peaceful. It was heavy, like fog sitting on my chest. Everything that had just happened replayed over and over in my mind. The way the chicken slapped against my shirt, the look in Denise's eyes when she threw it, the sound of those pork chops crashing to the floor. I couldn't decide which part hurt more, the food in my lap or the fact that not one person at that table spoke up for me until I was already walking out the door. I drove aimlessly for a while, passed by our old church, dark and empty on Christmas night, passed by Lorna's favorite bakery, long since closed down, boarded windows still covered in old for-lease flyers. Everywhere I looked, something reminded me of what used to be, of the woman I used to love, of the daughter who used to love me. I ended up parked at Riverside Park, same place Lorna and I used to take the kids every Sunday after service. It was deserted now, just me and the rusted swings creaking in the wind. I stared out at the river until the city lights blurred with the tears in my eyes. And I said it out loud, to no one in particular. What the hell did I do to deserve that? It wasn't a rhetorical question. I meant it. I wanted God, or fate, or the universe, whoever was listening, to answer me. I had worked my whole damn life to give that girl everything I didn't have growing up. I wasn't perfect. Lord knows I wasn't. I had my temper, especially after Lorna passed. I got short sometimes. Detached. There were days when I just didn't have it in me to be both mother and father. But I never stopped showing up. Never stopped trying. And now, all that effort boiled down to a cold piece of chicken thrown across a dinner table. I leaned back in my seat and closed my eyes. And I saw her again, not as she was tonight, but as she used to be. Denise at 5 years old, holding my hand at the zoo. Denise at 13, dancing to old Destiny's Child songs in the living room. Denise at 17, slamming her bedroom door after yelling that she hated me, and then crawling into my bed an hour later, sobbing, because her mom wasn't there to help her pick out a prom dress. I had been there. Not always perfectly, not always patiently, but I had been there. So what changed? I thought about calling her, just to ask. Just to try, one more time, to get through. But my hands wouldn't move. My pride wouldn't let me. I'd swallowed too much already. The silence she gave me all those years, every ignored call, every one-word text reply, every birthday where she forgot. I'd accepted it all like a man takes his medicine. But this was different. This wasn't absence. It was aggression. And I realized something I hadn't wanted to admit before. Denise didn't just distance herself from me. She resented me, and I needed to know why. 3 days later, I found myself back in front of her house. I hadn't told anyone I was going. Not even my youngest daughter, Michelle, who would have tried to talk me out of it. I just woke up that morning, still aching from the weight of Christmas, and something in my chest said, go. Not to yell, not to demand an apology, just to see her. Eye to eye. No distractions. No guests. Just father and daughter. I knocked. It took a full minute before the door opened. She looked surprised. Tired. Her hair was loose. Her eyes sunken like she hadn't slept well. She didn't say anything. Just crossed her arms and leaned against the doorframe. I'm not here to fight, I said. She didn't invite me in. I just need to ask you one thing, I continued. What did I do that made you hate me? Her arms dropped slightly. I don't hate you. I stepped forward, voice low. You threw food at me, Denise. Like I was nothing. That don't come from nowhere. She glanced behind her, like making sure Jamal wasn't in earshot. Then she stepped outside and closed the door. We stood on the porch, face to face, the wind picking up around us. I don't hate you, she repeated. I don't know how to forgive you. That hit harder than I expected. For what? I asked. For leaving me alone with all that grief, she said, eyes glistening. When Mom died, you just shut down. You weren't there, Dad. Not really. You paid the bills, yeah? You made sure we ate. But you didn't talk. You didn't hug. You didn't sit with me when I cried at night. You didn't even look me in the eyes for, like, a whole year. I swallowed hard. I was grieving too. I know, she whispered. But I was a kid. I needed you. And when you didn't show up, emotionally, I stopped needing you altogether. That's how I survived. The silence between us grew thick, almost unbearable. I looked down at my hands. I didn't know how, I said. Your mother was the glue. She was the soft one. The talker. I didn't know how to be her and me at the same time. I know, she said again, softer now. But it still hurt. I looked up at her, really looked. And behind all that bitterness, I saw it. The little girl still hiding under all that armor. The girl I failed without even realizing it. I'm sorry, I said. Tears welled in her eyes, but she didn't let them fall. She nodded. Just once. Then she opened the door and went back inside. She didn't say goodbye. I didn't ask her to. But for the first time in years, I felt like something cracked open, not enough to fix things, but enough to let some air in. I didn't tell anyone what happened on Denise's porch, not because I wanted to protect her and not because I didn't want people to know, but because I didn't know what to say. It wasn't a reconciliation, not really. She didn't hug me. She didn't apologize. She didn't even invite me back inside. But she admitted something raw, something I wasn't sure I was ready to carry. She needed me, and I wasn't enough. The words haunted me for days. I went back to my house and sat in the same recliner I'd been sitting in for years, the same spot Lorna used to fold laundry beside. The TV played old westerns in the background, but I wasn't watching. I just stared at the photos on the mantel. Our wedding picture. A few family portraits from when the kids were small. One from Denise's high school graduation, her in a cap and gown, me standing next to her with my arms stiffly around her shoulders. Even then, I'd felt the distance, but I told myself it would pass, that she'd grow out of it. Now I wasn't so sure. 3 days after that porch conversation, the fallout finally caught up with me. Michelle called. She usually checked in every Sunday, but this time her tone was different, more hesitant, like she was holding something back. Daddy, I gotta ask you something, she said after a long pause. All right. Did something happen at Denise's on Christmas? I leaned back in my chair and closed my eyes. What did she tell you? She didn't tell me anything. But her friend Tasha posted some nonsense on Facebook about you flipping the dinner table and cursing everybody out. People in the comments talking about how you ruined the night. I sat up straight. I didn't flip a damn table. I knocked a plate of food onto the floor. One plate. And I didn't curse once. Michelle sighed. I figured. That's why I'm calling you, not her. I could feel my jaw tightening. So that's the story she's spreading now? Looks like it, she said. But Jamal's cousin commented, too. Said Denise threw food at you first. She did. Jesus, Michelle whispered. Why? Because I asked for chicken instead of pork. That's it. The line went quiet for a moment. Then, softly, Michelle said, I'm sorry. You got nothing to be sorry for, I replied. No, I do, she said. Because I knew she was getting bitter. I just didn't know it had gone that far. I should have said something sooner. I rubbed my temple. You're not responsible for what she does, baby. That's between her and whatever she's still holding on to. Michelle was always different from Denise. Where Denise grew colder with age, Michelle grew warmer. More empathetic. More grounded. She checked in. Asked questions. Brought her kids to visit even when she was busy. I never had to guess where I stood with her. And I realized, in that moment, I'd spent so much time grieving what I lost with Denise that I hadn't fully appreciated what I still had in Michelle. I don't think she hates you, Michelle said after a while. I think she hates that you remind her of how much she still misses Mom. That hit hard. Maybe, I said. But I can't keep being her punching bag because she refuses to deal with her grief. No, Michelle agreed. You can't. There was a long pause. Then she said, come over for dinner next Sunday. The girls miss you. I smiled, the first real smile in days. I'd like that. Good. And Daddy? Yeah. You didn't deserve that chicken. We both laughed, quietly at first, then a little louder. It felt good to laugh again, even if just for a moment. That night, I decided to take a walk through the neighborhood. It was cold, but not unbearable. The streets were still dressed in leftover holiday lights, and the occasional wreath still clung to a mailbox or fence. I passed by the Carsons' house, old neighbors who used to come to our New Year's parties every year when Lorna was still alive. Mrs. Carson was out front smoking. Evenin', Marcus, she called out. Evenin', Gloria, I said. She took a drag and exhaled slowly. Heard about Christmas. I stopped walking. From who? Girl down the street saw it on Facebook. Said your daughter embarrassed you. I nodded slowly. She did. Gloria looked at me for a long moment. Then she said, you know, people always act like fathers are made of stone. Like nothing you do to them matters cause they're men. But I raised 2 boys. I know better. I didn't respond right away. Then she added, don't let her turn you into a villain just cause she don't know how to process her pain. I nodded again. Thanks, Gloria. She took one last drag. Don't be a stranger. When I got back inside, I sat down and started writing. Not a letter to Denise. Not a post for the internet. Just a journal entry. Something private. Something honest. December 30th. Today, I realized that some people will never see the version of you that you built in their honor. I've been over backwards for that girl. Worked myself into early arthritis. Missed years of joy so she could have stability. And now she treats me like a ghost who overstayed his welcome. But I also realized this. I have a daughter who sees me. I have grandkids who smile when they see my face. I have people in this world who would never let me sit at their table hungry. That has to count for something. From now on, I go where love is given freely, not where it's rationed like punishment. When I closed the notebook, I felt lighter, still hurt, still grieving, but not crushed. Some wounds don't bleed. They bruise. And if you're not careful, you start adjusting your whole posture around them, carrying yourself like you deserve the pain. But I wasn't going to do that anymore. Denise could tell whatever story she wanted. I knew the truth. And so did the people who mattered. The voicemail came the day after New Year's. I was sitting at the kitchen table, sipping a second cup of coffee, when the phone buzzed. Unknown number. I let it ring out, not in the mood for spam or surveys or some stranger selling roof work I didn't need. But then the voicemail notification pinged. I almost deleted it without checking, but something in my gut told me to listen. It was Jamal. Mr. Miller, hey. I hope this is still your number. I've been meaning to call since Christmas. Just didn't really know what to say. But, look, I just wanted to say I'm sorry. For what happened. For not stepping in sooner. I didn't think it would go that far, and I definitely didn't expect her to throw food. I should have said something right then. That was wrong. And you didn't deserve that. Denise, she's going through some things, but that's not an excuse. I'm sorry, sir. I hope you're okay. He hung up after that. No request to call back. No invitation. Just the kind of apology that comes when a man knows he stood in the wrong room and didn't speak up. I sat with it for a long while. There was something about Jamal's voice that made me feel heavier and lighter at the same time. Like I wasn't crazy, someone had seen it. Someone had noticed. And even though it was too little, too late, it still mattered. Not because I needed his approval, but because I needed confirmation that I wasn't the villain Denise was trying to paint me as. The funny thing about lies is they don't need to be loud to spread. They just need silence. And silence was exactly what I was about to face again. 2 days later, Michelle called again, this time with a casual offer. Uncle Calvin's throwing his birthday get-together early this year. Just a cookout. Come with us. I hesitated. You know Denise might be there, I said. I know, she replied. That's why I want you to come with us. You shouldn't feel like you gotta hide. It was strange, realizing I'd been carrying that same impulse. Avoid, shrink, disappear. All the years I told my kids to stand tall and speak up, I was now trying to sidestep confrontation like a man tiptoeing through his own house. I told her I'd think about it. But the next morning, I woke up, looked at myself in the mirror, and asked, what message am I sending if I don't show up? So I went. The cookout was already buzzing by the time we arrived. It was held at Calvin's house, Michelle's godfather, and one of my oldest friends from back in the warehouse days. Burgers on the grill, kids playing tag in the yard, folding chairs all around the porch and driveway. It felt good to see familiar faces, to laugh, to breathe without weight in my chest. Michelle stayed close, and her girls tugged at my hands every 5 minutes, asking for juice or to watch them jump rope. I let myself relax. I even cracked a few jokes. I was starting to forget, just for a moment. Then Denise showed up. She didn't see me at first. She walked in with Jamal and their toddler, wearing big sunglasses and a tight expression like she was bracing for bad weather. The crowd shifted subtly. People noticed. Jamal saw me before she did. He gave me a nod, just enough to acknowledge, but not enough to stir anything. I nodded back. No bad blood between us. Not anymore. Denise, though, turned her head and froze. She stood there, maybe 20 feet away, staring like she'd seen a ghost. Then her mouth twitched, and she looked away. Kept walking. I didn't chase her down. I didn't speak. I went back to sitting with Calvin and a couple of cousins, sipping sweet tea and talking about old music. But my ears stayed alert. Later, as the crowd thinned and folks wandered off into smaller groups, I overheard someone mention Christmas again. Oh yeah, I saw that post. Didn't her dad throw food or something? I tensed. Before I could speak, Michelle stepped forward from behind me. No, she said, loud and clear. He didn't. The group turned. My sister threw food at my father across the dinner table, in front of her in-laws, in front of everyone. And he calmly stood up, wiped himself off, and walked away. So if anybody's telling a different version, they're lying. The air stiffened. Conversation stopped. Michelle looked at me, then back at the small crowd of relatives. My dad's not perfect, but he's never been disrespectful. And I'm not going to let people paint him like some bitter old man just because they don't want to admit they've been unkind. Denise appeared behind her, arms crossed. Oh, so now you're his little lawyer? She said bitterly. Michelle turned slowly. No, I'm just someone who believes in telling the truth. Denise's jaw clenched. You weren't there. Michelle didn't flinch. No, but Jamal was. And he left a whole voicemail apologizing to Dad for what you did. So unless he's lying too. The silence was deafening. Denise didn't reply. She just turned around and walked away, back toward her car. Jamal followed her, but not too quickly. I looked at Michelle, my youngest girl, now a grown woman standing between two tidal waves, and all I could feel was pride. Pure, unapologetic pride. Later that night, after the crowd had gone and the embers of the grill were dying down, Calvin pulled me aside. You all right? He asked. I nodded. Yeah. More than I thought I'd be. He clapped my shoulder. I saw what happened. And I gotta say, you raised a good one in Michelle. I tried to raise them all good, I said, quieter. You did, he replied. But some folks just take longer to come back around. Or they don't. I nodded, looking out at the darkening sky. Yeah, and I'm finally okay if they don't. That night, I slept deeply for the first time in weeks. No restless tossing. No haunted dreams of chicken thighs and slammed doors. Just rest. Because sometimes, peace doesn't come when the problem's fixed. It comes when you stop blaming yourself for it. Father's Day came around faster than I expected. It always did, really. Time had a strange way of speeding up the older I got. One minute, I was dodging snow in January. The next, I was watching the trees sweat in June. But this year, the holiday crept in different. Not heavy, not hollow, just still. I didn't expect anything. And for the first time in years, I wasn't aching for a call that never came. I had already lived the worst version of that silence. So I woke up early, made myself some eggs, and read on the porch. Michelle and her girls had plans to stop by later. She'd already texted me the night before. Got ribs and strawberry shortcake coming your way, Daddy. Rest up. I smiled at that message longer than I probably should have. Around 10:13 a.m., my phone buzzed. No ringtone, just a soft vibration. It was a message from Denise. Happy Father's Day. Hope you're doing well. No emojis. No punctuation. Just that. Dry as toast. And yet it still caught me off guard. I stared at it for a long time. It wasn't an apology. It wasn't a phone call. It wasn't her standing in front of me, looking me in the eye, saying she'd been wrong. But it was something. The first Happy Father's Day in 4 years. Part of me wanted to respond, even just a thank you. But the other part, the quieter, wiser part, held my hand still, because I knew what would happen. I'd send back a kind word, and I'd start that climb again. That same slow crawl back toward her affection. Hoping, waiting, chasing. And I was tired of chasing people who had already decided they didn't want to catch me. So I deleted the message. Not out of anger. Out of peace. Out of clarity. Out of knowing that my worth didn't depend on being forgiven by someone who still hadn't learned how to see me as a whole person, not just the father who failed to grieve the right way. I'd made peace with my mistakes. I'd grieved for the daughter I once had. And I'd chosen, finally, to stop building bridges where there were only walls. Around noon, Michelle pulled up with her 2 girls in the back seat. They ran up the porch steps, carrying a plate of ribs wrapped in foil and a lopsided strawberry cake that looked more love than recipe. Happy Father's Day, Grandpa! They shouted in unison, tackling me with hugs. Michelle followed with a grin. Don't get too emotional. We only came for the AC. We all laughed. And in that small, messy, beautiful moment, I felt whole. I didn't need a perfect family. I didn't need every child to come back home. I just needed peace. After dinner, as the girls played in the yard and Michelle helped me wash dishes, she looked over and said, "She texted me this morning too." "Yeah," I replied. "She said she texted you." I nodded. Michelle didn't ask what I replied. She already knew. She handed me a towel to dry the last plate. "You did the best you could, Daddy. And some folks only see that after it's too late." "Maybe," I said. "Or maybe some folks see it and still choose to forget." Michelle didn't respond right away. Then she said, "That's on them, then. Not you." And just like that, it landed. The truth. The freedom. I couldn't force someone to love me the way I needed. But I could choose who I gave my love to, who I allowed to sit at my table, who I broke bread with. And I would never again serve myself where I wasn't fed. Later that night, after they'd gone, I sat on the porch watching the sun sink down behind the trees. There was a warm breeze in the air, and somewhere a wind chime clinked lazily. I leaned back, closed my eyes, and thought of Lorna, of the kind of woman she was, the kind of mother she'd been, the kind of balance she brought to our home. And for the first time in a long, long while, I didn't feel like I was failing her. I felt like I had done what she would have wanted. I had protected my peace. And I had finally drawn a line not out of spite, but out of love for myself. If this story hit home, I want to hear from you. Have you ever had to draw a line with someone you love just to protect your peace? Drop your story in the comments. And if you're walking through something similar, know this. You don't need everyone to understand your boundaries. You just need to honor them. Because peace isn't selfish, it's sacred.